To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Roxbury was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. On December 28, 2022, notice was emailed and faxed to the Daily Record, the North Star Ledger, the Roxbury Register, and published in the Daily Record. Notice shall also remain posted throughout the year on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building. Deputy Mayor Albrecht.
I am here.
Councilman Carey.
Here.
Councilman Crowley.
Here.
Councilman DiFilippo.
Here.
Councilman Hall. Councilman Patillo.
Here.
Mayor Riley.
Here. Presentations, quarterly report. I'm sure we'll all have a chance to look at it. Any questions, comments for the manager? Seeing none? Move on. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes, please?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any questions? Comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Albrecht.
Yes.
Councilman Carey.
Too low over there.
Councilman Crowley.
Yes.
Councilman DiFilippo.
Yes.
Councilman Hall.
Yes.
Councilman Patillo.
Yes.
Mayor Riley.
Yes. And that brings us to our first public portion. Would anybody in the public wish to be heard on any issue, please raise your hand. Young man right in the front. Attends a lot of meetings.
Good evening. Dennis Wine, Circus. A couple of things. Did you look at posting more no parking on Main Street around the South Street area?
We're
Question.
working on that now, as part of, it'd be a two-step process. We're looking to do one thing short-term, but we need to look at it more realistically.
Well, the more of it you do, the better.
Well,
The other day I
we
was-
just keep pushing it down the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
We just do that area, it just goes further down the road.
Yeah. The other day I tried to get out of
So
South Street.
we're
Can't see any.
looking at zones, well, that's the first part we're doing. We're gonna have a setback along that house, that home there,
Yeah.
no parking there, that should be coming up shortly, right, John?
The signs for the near Kenville Avenue are posted, those are up.
It is?
I believe so.
Are they in the eastbound or westbound?
That would be
Toward Randolph?
westbound. That would be westbound.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at eastbound, trying to get out of stop and turn left. You can't see.
We did not look at that specifically. We looked more at the intersection with Kenville and Main Street.
Yeah.
So we could look at that other location.
So we're still looking at a bigger.
Why wouldn't you
bigger-
look at
Whole
those
picture,
locations?
Yeah, because it's probably gonna have to
Jeez
be tied to
Louise.
zones and stuff like that, and it's a shame that we have to do all this.
With that truck was parked very close to the corner. And it had a big square rectangle thing of that, totally blocked, you can't see it.
And by the way, John, what, the one black truck is that a flat tire for?
Okay, your financial information shows the zoning board budget has gone, looks like around 40,000 to 285,000. Is that because of Hercules?
No, you say zoning board or planning board?
Well, the planning board pretty flat. Expenditures in 22, 91,000, expenditures in 23, 89,000. Zoning board, expenditures in 2022, 20,000, and 2023, almost 120,000.
Yeah, we'll have to look. I don't know if they, maybe that's misposted, I don't know. That doesn't, for the zoning board, I don't think they've done anything.
No, if anything, I would have, that would have planned.
Yeah, no, I have the same thing. Yeah, thank you. We can take a look at that.
Yeah, can you take a look at that?
We will.
Send a memo out, Mr. Wanda.
My last thing is the Hercules property that's going to be the proposed warehouse property, is that all in Roxbury and none in Mount Arlington?
There's a small piece of Mount Arlington.
Are they involved at all in this process? Should they be?
Well, their mayor was actually at the last plan.
Okay.
They're very.
So they know about it. Okay.
Yeah, the mayor, Mike Stanzillis, Mayor, said that his chief concern is safety, the safety of people on Howard Boulevard. And he spoke at the planning board meeting about it.
I was looking at tapping the Roxbury coverage of some of that. Sounds to me like if they have all the traffic leaving that facility and headed, I'll call it northbound, if somebody's coming from this direction, they're gonna have to go, somebody turn the U-turn up there on Howard Yeah, going the other way.
It's just trucks that they're proposing.
Okay, the car can turn left.
Cars can do full turn. Proposed. Difference. Thank you. Anybody else in the public wish to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. Joanne Bach, Mechanic Street. I'm glad somebody addressed the problem on Main Street, cars, because some days it's good, some days it's worse. I'm glad it's being worked on.
It's bad or worse.
Well, if you live down there and you're making left turns all the time, it's kind of scary. Number two, I love the signage over at Horseshoe Lake. Looks good. Good job.
Anybody else in the public wish to be heard on anything? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll close the public portion. That takes us to reports of council liaisons, representatives, council committees, and doing their business. Actually, since we have some people from the Highlands here, I'm going to jump down to number 8. Matters requested referred by council members, matters attorney and clerk, and invite our guests from the Highlands, Ben Spinelli, Judy. Welcome. Did you have a presentation for us?
I did, Mayor. I'll just give it to you. I'll wing it. You've got a copy of the presentation.
That's why I thought you had.
And you've been working for Highlands for a long time. This is not new to you. We did meet with some representatives from Roxbury about a month ago to discuss the potential of having Roxbury conform to the Highlands in the planning area. And so I'd just like to discuss that with you, since you've been working with us for a long time. Answer any questions that you might have, point out what some of the advantages might be. And really to bring the message that there really is no downside to working with us. We have a great staff. We can provide a tremendous amount of technical assistance to the township. You can withdraw from the voluntary portion of conformance anytime you want. We bring grants to the table to do ordinary planning tasks that you would be doing otherwise and paying for on your own. We can subsidize those costs or cover them completely. I think the biggest advantage to working with us is the ability to work with the other state agencies to bring them to the table to address any concerns that you might have. And I say that because the information that we use to develop the regional master plan is available to you now. You don't have to be conforming to take advantage of that, the underlying scientific information that went into the creation of the regional master plan. There are certain legal advantages if you do it under the color of working with the Highlands Council, but that information nonetheless is very powerful and provides you with a good deal of legal protection for the land use decisions that you make. We've engaged in a lot of policy making since I came to the Highlands. It's almost a year now, which is hard to believe, but we're going through a number of different policy areas and trying to present a common sense approach that uses the regional master plan to inform different policy areas that we're coming out with a series of guidance documents addressing. The first one was warehousing that caught a lot of public attention. At the same time, we're working on things like forest stewardship, we're working on affordable housing, to make sure that those policy areas are providing the 88 municipalities in the Highlands with appropriate guidance. And again, to give them the legal backing and the solid foundation that they need to address these things in a way that's going to be durable for the future, that's going to address the greater concerns of the Highlands region in particular, and also the state of New Jersey that relies upon the Highlands for the drinking water. Right, over 7 million people get their drinking water, to either all or portion of it, some as far south as Gloucester County. So working with us, it's I try to say it's good for Roxbury, it's good for the Highlands, it's good for the state of New Jersey. and it doesn't cost you anything in the long run. And you know, if we were to, if you look in the presentation that I brought, I've got two maps there. I've got your zoning map, and I've got the land use capability map from the Highlands Regional Master Plan. And if you compare the two, you're going to find very few deviations, places where you might think that it's appropriate to grow, where the regional master plan has said it's not, or places where you might think it's not appropriate to grow that we may have identified as existing community zone, where we think it would accommodate development. And the reason for that is that a lot of that scientific information that went into the creation of the regional master plan has been known for a long time. A lot of it came from a lot of DEP studies. A lot of it has been used for planning by the municipalities in the Highlands for a long time. So there's not a lot that's a mystery, right? We're not here to tell you that that Ledgewood should not be, the shopping center on Ledgewood should be turned into a park. I think we're way beyond anything like that. It's really a practical application of sound planning principles that hopefully will help Roxbury plan for the future, make sure that the next generation is going to have a sustainable place, and that will help you be more efficient in your administration of the township. So that's it in a nutshell. Like I said, there's not a magic bullet, right? It's not like, well, I'm not here to sell you that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's good government, right? It's good sound government, good practical application of planning principles, and it's a way of coordinating different levels of government from the top down to the local to make sure that we can address your community needs. Roxbury's a very interesting place. It's a great, half the county used to be Roxbury, and still you've got places within Roxbury that have their distinctive character. Right? You've got Landing and Ledgewood and Kenville and Succasunna, right? They're remnants of the times when they were small outposts, and they still have each their own characters. We can also help you plan center-based planning that would build off of those long-standing settlement patterns that are here. Not that you haven't, but we can certainly help you do that and do what you want and do it in a better way. The last thing I'll say is that even though you would be conforming to the Highlands Regional Master Plan, you still retain control at the local level. Right? All your land use decisions are still made here. You can ask for our guidance to maybe projects that would be of note. I think you probably have a few that you can think of off the top of your head you might want our input on. But basically you keep control. Your zoning official here would be going through our if they haven't, they would be going through our training program that would certify them to issue a certain number of exemptions from the Highlands Act at the local level right here without having to go to DEP or come to us. And it's not really a loss of local control. It's just you retain local control, but you do it in a manner that's been informed by the regional master plan. So that's
let me start off because I'm sure a lot of people look at Jim Riley and say, "What are you talking about? Why are you talking about that?" And when the act was first passed, I did oppose the act in its present form because it had taken place in the petitioner. That asked the governor with the Highlands Council, and I think I know a lot of what's happened at the Highlands far exceeds what you get out of state agencies, including DEP. It's very specialized, and if anybody has a chance to go look at their mapping and things like that on the website, take them up to detail. And within the concept of water, I always felt, you just kind of said it, there's not a lot of differences here. There's some things that we might look at a little differently, but it's not a lot of differences. So that's why I always felt that municipalities could, if they wanted to, try to do the right thing. But now, municipalities are being hijacked a little bit, and we're not getting good governance. The governor and the legislature, majority, don't want to take up the issue that's impacted so many towns with not about rural housing and the warehousing issues, and kind of leaving us out there on our own. They didn't have bad legislation. They have no legislation since they ended up in the courts. So it pushes us to have contact allies when we're dealing with certain items. You touched on, yeah, and you're right, we have several projects that are going on. Thought if this was not for any one project, it was a holistic part of the things that are being thrown at us at this point in time, as you well aware, the former mayor and everything else. So we did have that last touchstone at warehousing. Where does something like that stand with your ability to work affect those things?
That's a really good question. It's designed to really provide us guidance in how we evaluate projects, but also give municipalities guidance on how their zoning should be set up and how their decision-making should go, right? We're not here to say that warehousing is bad, right? Well, what's bad is warehousing in the wrong locations. And so we came out with a series of guidelines that were designed to inform the decision-making. You are free to use that guidance now without conforming. I think it's got a little stronger basis to it if you are conforming in the planning area. But the principles behind the warehouse guidelines are valid no matter where you are or what the status of the municipality is. And basically we look at proximity to highway access, to rail access, the existence or non-existence of important resources that need to be protected, and to try to make a good, sound decision for the long term, so that the warehouses that are built, right, we need them for our modern economy right now. But again, they're going in an opportunistic fashion, not in a manner that's well planned. And we see that across the Highlands. And not so much here, right? This is a little more developed portion of the region. If you look at in Warren County and Hunterdon County, where there's a lot of open farmland, and Route 78, Route 82, 87 going through a lot of those municipalities, they're ripe for warehouse development. A lot of them are free of, we think that farmland is an important asset that has to be preserved for a lot of reasons that no need to go into that here tonight, but but it also becomes some of the easiest land to be developed. And so what happens, instead of saying, look, we're going to pick a good spot to put this, we're going to look at an old industrial site, we're going to make sure that's rail access, is going to be right on the interstate exit. It's opportunity. It's wherever the land becomes available that these get built. And we're trying to bring some order to that. And you touched on affordable housing. Same thing, affordable housing in the Highlands has to be treated differently than affordable housing in another part of the state, right? And again, you said that when the legislation was passed, there were a lot of problems with the legislation. They're still there, but the concept behind it of planning to protect the water supply for 9 million people is a good one. And what's happened is that a lot of these broader planning principles have been set aside for individual policy issues, and so that the bigger picture gets lost, and the way that everything should be working together gets lost. And we're trying to bring some order to that.
I can open it up to my council to see if they have any questions individually. They haven't worked. Maybe further a little bit, and most have that much knowledge of the islands. Any questions?
Does being part of the Highlands due to co-op obligation?
It's not going to, again, it's a hard question because we're not real sure right now. It's not going to be, again, it's not a magic bullet. What we are aiming to do is make sure that the build out of the region is accurately calculated, that the places where building should take place and should not take place in an intense manner is accurately mapped. And then once we know those two things, then you can do an accurate allocation of affordable housing units across the region where growth is possible, where it's not. And when growth is possible, growth in the amount that's appropriate for the location. So it's not gonna, I can't say that it would reduce your affordable housing obligation. What I can say is that if we are successful in what we're doing, we're still a little ways away from getting there, but we're engaged in it right now, that your affordable housing would be appropriately and accurately calculated. And the methodologies by which you could get, you could fulfill that obligation would also be in the
Does
same
it help us
direction.
in where our obligation is? Not knowing a lot about COA, but it seems every year our obligation gets larger, or at some point in time it has to stop.
And
Because we built out so much.
right. And in the Highlands, that's particularly true because the Highlands has a limited capacity, right? And it's one of the things that, if you were going to ask me about in my job, the things that when I'm projecting out, the things that bother me, one of them is that I don't know what the carrying capacity of the region as a whole is. And by that, I don't know what the population that the region can support and still provide clean drinking water to the people who live here and still export drinking water to 7 million other people. We don't know what that number is, but we know it's a finite number. And a lot of the methodologies by which the affordable housing obligations have been assigned throughout the state have assumed that there's continuous growth, right? And that's not true. It's not true in the Highlands. It's a finite capacity.
The immediate problem, though, is actually, I'm not surprised to hear this, I'd like to continue with this subject further, is density for affordable housing. How come you have nothing to say about density?
We have plenty to say about density, right? I mean, and we just haven't gotten to that, right? We're developing our guidance document that will address that, right? Density, right? Here's there's a lot of issues that come up, right? And I got to be careful with how I express this because it's a very charged issue.
I mean, I'm not as concerned about the total number.
Right.
I'm more concerned about this tremendous pressure to put a high density in our community. Does it make any sense?
Right, and it's because of the methodology by which we decided how we're going to meet it, and that's when you use inclusionary development as your primary source, right? If you have a project that's 100 units and 20 of them are affordable and 80 of them are market rate, I say that begs the question of whether that's indeed an affordable housing development, right? It's really a market rate development that kicks off a small number of affordable units as a side benefit. And so you take the base zoning that's theoretically been calculated based upon resource capacity, infrastructure capacity, and you throw that out the window and you put more development into a place where you've already determined that you thought you knew what the maximum density or capacity of that spot was. And that's, from a planning standpoint, that's problematic. And we've got to find a way, right, that if a town hasn't, we want towns to affirmatively plan for their affordable units in a manner that's consistent with all the other planning principles that go along with it, right? It shouldn't be looked at in isolation. It should be looked at in terms of resource protection and infrastructure capacity and all the other things that you need to look at.
Roxbury has a track record of actually building affordable.
Correct, and that's another one too, that you haven't been trying to actively avoid your obligation, but to do it in a manner that's consistent with all your other planning here in town. And that's what we're after, right? There may be places where an inclusionary development may be appropriate. There may be a lot of places where it's not. Maybe places where we should drive towards 100% affordable because it limits the number of units that are going to be built to the affordable units, which is what you're after anyway, right? And you do it in a manner and it ends up being built in a manner that's consistent with the rest of your plan. And that's great. And that's just like I said, trying to take a common sense, long-term view of this. And I think that's important to bring to the debate. And the last time around, when the state stepped aside for all intents and purposes and allowed the courts to make the decisions, the Highlands Regional Master Plan was not in consideration during those discussions. And this time around, that's my job is to make sure that we're at the table to bring our 2 cents to the argument.
Thank you.
I can't believe what a breath of fresh air you folks are. You have absolutely, well, you probably do, the amount of time that this council's put into trying to meet an obligation that nobody can actually give us a real derivative as far as how it was actually put together. It's absolutely incredible. The thought patterns here as far as, kindness to available resources that we currently have is just an absolute breath of fresh air. It really limit, maybe expand in different areas, what our obligations are going to be. So, you know, I gotta tell you flat out, I really like what I'm hearing. I really, really like what I'm hearing as far as this is concerned. And Mr. Mayor, if I may, just a second point. On the second point I'd like to make also is, what is the sign-on process for the Highlands in order to get folks involved? Maybe you can explain that to me and everybody else.
Sure, I'll let Judy do it. And Judy would be your sign planner, which would be in really good hands. But she can, you know, basically, I'll start her off. Really, all you have to do is ask, right? If you put together a scope of work on evaluating what the differences would be from working with us going forward for the planning area, we pay for that. Your planner does the evaluation, and then you'll have an idea, and then we'll set out a work plan for you. You know, and we're taking a little different approach to conformance right now. It's not a game, right? If there are 15 steps for you to take to reach full conformance, and you take 5 of them, we're 5 steps better off than we were, right? And we're not worried about the 10 you didn't take. We're worried about the 5 that you did take. And we know that means you're doing better planning, that you're going to be in a better position going forward, that you're forwarding the mission of the regional master plan just that much more. And again, if you look at the comparison of the maps and you see where you've chosen to have your dense development in your community, and where you've chosen to develop less densely, to preserve land, to protect the watershed, to protect the lakes that you have here, you're going to see that you're probably pretty close to what we would foresee as conformance right now. Right, there are some things like the Highlands Land Use Ordinance that you would put in. I've gone too far. I'll let you.
Keep it shop, right?
Yeah, that's right. Go ahead, Judy. Let him have it.
Ben has it exactly right. It really is just putting together a work plan and a scope of work that we could consider, so we could develop for you a pot of grant funding to use to do the research and homework you need to be comfortable with the whole idea of conformance. So you would have answers to every question and have everything addressed, so you know exactly how it would be dealt with if you did conform with the Highlands Regional Master Plan. Now, you did do an initial assessment way back when, I think 2009 or 10. That was the very first step in the conformance process way back early on. I did look at that. It's actually still very valid. There's probably some updates that might be appropriate to it based on development that's occurred since that time. But I think for the most part, certainly in terms of Highlands resources and what it would entail, it's very close. So you could decide to update that, and we would provide funding for that, or you could decide to just use that and put together a work plan for a petition, and actually work on putting together a petition for plan conformance. Keeping in mind, just FYI the whole time, that you're not committed until you actually adopt an ordinance petitioning the Highlands Council for conformance. So the whole time you're really testing the waters, studying the issues, learning all about it. We cover those costs. You're not on the hook to reimburse us for any of that expense. And at the end of the day, you make a decision. And we would certainly not be coming back to you looking for any refunds if you decided not to go forward. We just hope that you would, and that you would see the benefits in it. And I think there are a myriad of benefits.
Yeah, John, please note on that too, please. If there was a follow-up on this, we can transition to our planner. So, I want to make sure we're in the right place to have this jump forward.
I'm sorry, just one thing I know, there's some questions here. Do you typically work with the town manager and his staff, or do you work with the planning board?
It can be a combination. We'll work on certain areas of it, get the nuts and bolts work out of the way. The planner will do a lot of that actual work, and then there'll be presentations that will involve the planning board. They could be joint committee presentations. However you really prefer to set it up is the way we work it. It's really driven by municipalities. So you can have a subcommittee, or you can have large joint meetings of everyone, however you prefer to do that.
had mentioned before, well, both Ben and Judith, I've heard words like conform and committed, but Ben, you had said that it costs us nothing to conform to the Highlands. But rarely does nothing for free.
If you act now.
You had said that control stays here locally, but what are we losing? What are we losing?
You're really not, what you're losing, and I don't, please don't take this the wrong way, it's your ability to make bad decisions that aren't consistent with the underlying science that's there. And like I said, you've been planning using a lot of this information forever, so it's not, there's, like I said, we might go through your existing zoning ordinance, and we might find a couple of inconsistencies, places where you think it's okay to build, where the underlying conditions that you probably should, if you're going to build, you shouldn't build densely, or you should try to preserve this land. I don't know where those are because I haven't gone through. But I mean, odds are that there's going to be a few. With a town this size, there may be a few places where you'll find those inconsistencies. By and large, what we end up doing is giving you more control over your town, right? Because we give you the solid backing for the decisions that you make. We, like I said, unless you want to do something that just flies in the face of good common sense planning principles, you're going to be able to do what you want, because like I said, our regional master plan, the mapping that underlies it, and your existing zoning are very close. So what you really lose is the ability to make these inconsistent or what I would say would be poorly informed decisions that you probably don't want to make anyway. And if you find yourself in a position where you've made a land use decision because it conforms to the regional master plan and you get sued over it, you've got an enhanced presumption of validity to your decisions that goes along with that. Because you're not just zoning for or making that land use decision based upon what's good for Roxbury, it will be, but you're really serving a much higher purpose by making those decisions because you're protecting the water supply for 7 million people. And you're right here at the headwaters of the Black River, which is a major tributary to the Raritan, which is a major source of drinking water for the state. So you're right here in a very important place from the interest of the state as a whole. So that's why you're afforded those enhanced presumptions for your land use decisions, because you're protecting those resources with a lot of what you do.
I'm gonna let you know this one.
Sure. No,
I'll just add one thought to that, just so you know how it works. You would actually be adopting regulations, you'd be adopting Highlands regulations, essentially. That would be a supplement to your existing zoning and land use ordinances. And they're meant to work together so that wherever there's a gap, for instance, regarding our resource areas, say steep slopes or forest areas, we have some certain provisions on those that we would ask that you also regulate in your ordinance. So we set it up so that whichever ordinance is the more restrictive is the one that shall apply. So if you want to go way beyond what we do, you're more than welcome to do that too. But you adopt those and then you take full purview over land development applications. So it's not like, we don't want to come in and take over your land use. And also just to add, as Ben has already said, everything we're asking, it's really based on capacity-based planning. That's really what it's all about. It's common sense, capacity-based planning, working with where you have sewer areas, where you don't, where you're on septic and where you're not, where you have significant critical resources and so on.
I disagree with some of those conservative views of places, but I think the build up now is one. The study will see where it is, where there's those discrepancies.
Listen, the big changes are subdivision of lots. That's different, right? The Highlands Act definitely, right? Any lot that existed on August 10th, 2004 carries an exemption from the Highlands Act with it. All right. And so basically, if you had a big lot that was 50 acres, you would be able to build one more house on that lot. So that it takes away the subdivision potential of large lots. That would be one of the areas. Your septic densities, we would give you recommendations on the densities. They may be different than what you have in your currently septic areas, outside the source service areas. But probably not. I mean, I gotta think probably not, because I've got to imagine that your zoning densities for your septic areas are based upon sound, the sound science of
We
what.
don't have a lot of septic areas.
Yeah, you're not gonna have a lot, and it's gonna be based upon the ability to have a well and a septic system. And you don't want people drinking, their neighbor's septic effluent.
So the protection that you said comes with conforming to homes, guides and recommendations. Previous experience in other townships, that's like article where we might, it's more of a statement.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, it is, and there hasn't been a lot of challenge. Right there really haven't been a lot of challenges to access with municipalities that were consistent with the Highlands. We've got a couple now where towns that are just jumping into conformance, where there are applicants who are in the middle of project presentations that are suddenly being derailed. That may garner a few challenges. But again, but that goes with the territory. We're trying to do what's good for the future of the communities in the Highlands and the future of the state.
And we're independent.
Yeah, we are independent. DP handles our payroll for us. That's about it. We actually find ourselves at odds with DP fairly often. But
That's an important topic.
You had mentioned refunds were on the hook if we chose not to go forward with things. There's a financial.
No, meaning that, if we provided grant funding for you to take this look and do the studies that you need to understand what plan performance means, that's the work you do is yours, the funding is yours. We don't come back to you and say, oh, we reimbursed you for this product, but you're not performing, so now we want that money back. We figure that everything you did is going to be a good planning exercise that is going to assist the municipality somehow in the future, regardless of whether you went forward with performance for planning area or not. So there's no need to, you don't have to reimburse the council for any grant funding that you provide. We just ask that you finish each of the grant projects that you sign up for and submit them in accordance with the approved scope of work.
But if you were to say we did the study and this isn't for us, then fine. Nothing. We're not going to say, oh, you owe us that grant money back, or we're not going to reimburse you. It doesn't work that way.
So let's talk about this. We're talking about capacities. What is your capacity to do for that it's inclusive of Roxbury? Do you have the staff to get it on?
No.
How long would it take?
We don't do the planning documents ourselves. We review them when we provide guidance and work with your planner. The actual planning documents or whatever work that's being done is done by your professionals. And then what will happen is if you're about to go down that road and you say, look, we want to do an update to our open space plan, and here you submit a scope of work to us. Judy will review it. She may have a few comments on what you may want to include or not include in that. But at the end, once we approve the scope of work, your professional does the work. You submit the invoices to us. We reimburse you, and I'm writing those checks within a day or two when the invoices are submitted to the Highlands Council. So everything is done on a reimbursement basis, but also with the completion of those tasks.
So you're really providing the funding to do it. And when you say it could be our in-house people, we could hire other people.
Correct.
We essentially have the money to go ahead and do that.
Right, and you get to choose who you want to have do the work. Again, we don't just provide, we provide technical assistance as well. We have a lot of back and forth with people who are doing the professional work in the towns that are working with us, and we can bring, this is no small advantage. We can also bring, if you had a source service area question, you needed DEP at the table, we bring DEP to the table. If you've got a lot of DOT issues here, right? We bring DOT to the table to speak with you too. So we can bring the right people into the conversation and get you where you're going. The other thing is we think we can have a little more influence with the other agencies for a town that's working with us, because we can make the same argument that you would be making if you were being attacked for one of your decisions. we make to the other agencies, saying, look, they're working with us, they're doing something that's furthering your mission, so let's sit down and figure out how to make this happen.
Just one thing to add to that is that if you can conform for the planning area, you're actually considered to have plan endorsement also, state plan endorsement to go along with that. Once you have conformance, they are equal to one another.
There's all these little Easter eggs in the state statutes about programs like grant programs, financial incentive programs that are tied to plan endorsement with the state plan that you would be able to access because of that. I said they're hidden in a lot of different legislation.
You have a list of those things?
Sorry?
You have a list of those?
You know, I think that actually Don and Randuro with OPA, they actually do have a list. It's comprehensive and they are hidden Easter eggs just as been put in the legislation and all these different agencies. There are grant programs and you'll find these little references that give priorities and a leg up to communities that are plan endorsed.
And in a past life, I wasn't just a mayor, I was the head of the Office of State Planning for 4 years.
I want to go back to the question.
That's fine, I like
The question.
You hit it so well.
Let me go back again about the process, because I'm not sure I understand.
Sure.
You mentioned that you take all these steps, which I assume with these grants, to get close to what I'll call, I guess, planning conformance. And then you mentioned about doing an ordinance,
Sure.
Yes.
which is essentially the end result, saying that you did all these steps. Because you had mentioned if you only did 5 of the 10 steps, is there a roadmap of all the steps?
There is.
Yeah, there really is a very clear roadmap, and we'll make it more clear than we're making it sound right now.
And then, I guess my question is, if you do all those steps, what does doing the ordinance get you that's over getting all, I mean, the steps is all the work.
The ordinance I'm referring to is called the Planning Area Petition Ordinance, and that's an ordinance that's required by the Highlands Act for conformance for any planning area portion of the region, because planning area conformance is voluntary. So in the act, they required that if a municipality chooses to opt in for their planning area, they have to do it by ordinance. You don't have to do that for preservation area because it's mandatory for the preservation area. That's what I was speaking of.
It's for the preservation area?
It's for the region is split between planning area and preservation area.
The ordinance is for the planning area.
So the ordinance is for the planning area. Preservation area conformance is required, and you have been long in for the planning, the preservation area.
Which they initially wanted us to do both. Yeah, ordinances for, which we never did. Right. We changed our policy somehow.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm just very excited about it.
So, excited about that.
I'm glad it's
Good to hear. So, you may actually look at this, and would you actually make a determination of what areas were in the planning area, and maybe some that are in the preservation?
It's already done.
That was done in 2009.
It was in 2000, when the Highlands Act was passed.
Okay.
It's got a definition of where the planning area and the preservation area are that defines it by, in very stark detail, because it had to follow roads, railroads, municipal or county boundaries, some landmark. And so there's an actual word-by-word description of the borders of the preservation area in the Highlands Act. Like you'll along Route 513 to the intersection with Route 10, right? And you know
That's also in our initial assessment that we did.
it should be. Yes.
Preservation for the whole Highlands region.
Right, for the
Is that
entire
on the website?
which includes.
It's on the website, and it is all mapped, and just so you know.
maps?
Yes.
I'm gonna pass this down.
And I'm sorry to only have that one small one, but we can provide you a plethora of maps and information.
So that's something that's never gonna change.
Right.
That was for the
Right.
planning area. So this is planning conformance for the planning area, and
You're already conforming for the preservation area.
we're already conforming right now for the preservation area.
So we're only talking about the plan.
Right.
Okay, that answers my question about the ordinance. That's what I was trying to understand.
We'd be happy to provide you.
Any other questions?
We'll get into the next steps.
We can get into it a little deeper. We have a resolution on this evening, to start that process. This then allow us to start talking to them about grants. It's the next one, the one that we're paying bills.
And we're always available to you to answer questions. You know better than anybody.
You guys do good work, and you know, one of the best.
Can I make a motion there?
I'd also, just previous grants, I'm very grateful to you guys for the grants that you've given us. You've been helpful.
Thank you.
to us.
We've been paying a lot of attention to Lake Apacon as well.
Which is fantastic. Landing channel, I know we just did a couple last month.
Landing channel's very exciting.
That's a really interesting project.
Honestly, it's very exciting.
It's a really interesting project.
Any other questions for our guests? Seeing none, you want to move the resolution now?
Mayor, if I please, can I please move 20-23 to 213?
Yes. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Olbeck.
Yes.
Councilman Carey.
Yes.
Councilman Crowley.
Yes.
Councilman DiFilippo.
Yes.
Councilman Hall.
Yes.
Councilman Patillo.
Yes.
Mayor Riley.
Yes. Just for the public, what we voted on was just a resolution expressing intent to align the township with the Highlands Master Plan. So we're not obligated, there'll be much more discussion at this point in time. I believe we are heading in that direction if we can work everything out. But just want the public to understand. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having us. Great to see everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Very well done.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna take over for a minute or two. And that brings us to reports of council liaison representatives, council committees, and new business and old business. Councilman Hall.
I'll keep it brief tonight. Great news, our new sign is up at Horseshoe Lake. It's already being utilized for a lot of our new programs that we have. So it's serving a purpose right away on day one. So thanks to DPW, I wish you were here tonight. They've been doing a lot of work around town, guys. I gotta tell you something. They help get that sign up. They help take care of the dugout. They help take care of the fixing of the field 11 for the sod. There was also a major washout on Kiwanis Park, with that torrential downpour that we had. You gotta see the patchwork they had to do there. John, they did a stellar job. So just pass that along. I mean, just stellar in a lot of these different aspects. Deputy Mayor, just 1 second here. Just one other thing, and I'll stop with this, and maybe Mr. Patel could probably pick up on some stuff. But you have those really nice signs at the senior center, that you put up a couple of years ago. And I think Mr. Crowley had a lot to do with that also. And also, the Deputy Mayor, you were involved with that. Those signs are very nice. Is it possible maybe in future months consider putting one up for just like that for health and recreation on the other side? Okay. Yeah, it's just so nice. Whoever designed it did a really nice job. So, trying to.
Are we still putting the Rocks Pack sign up too, John?
They're interested. In fact, earlier this week or the end of last week, I did receive a mock-up from Chief Potter.
Oh,
So
there you go.
that perfect timing, and I just got it. So her question was next step. So I'm going to be reviewing it, probably bringing it to the council. She'll probably be here if they're interested in getting a sign. Again, trying to make it compatible with the senior center sign.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank
Stay
you.
tuned.
That's all, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Hall. Councilman Crowley.
Just real quick, we had the EDC meeting today talking about shop local for except a sunny day, which sounds like it's way off. We're going to have to start talking about that for the holidays. I want to thank the DPW with all the rain and all the problems we've had in town, and the police and everyone, fire and EMS, helping out with all these kinds of problems that we've had in the last couple of weeks. John, and I've talked to you offline, John, about a couple of them. One I just want to bring up again is Longfellow and Alcott, when we did the paving there, and I've talked to Rick Wood about it. It collects water, so after rain, the water sits there for 2-3 days. Not a problem in summertime, it's a problem in the wintertime because it generates ice for people going around the water.
Okay.
I just want to make sure it stays on Rick's radar. What he had said is, as you're doing paving in there, kind of near and you got something extra, they can go ahead and fix that. That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I would like to report that the Rotary Club's next project is going to be cleaning up the Black River Pond Park. We have a lot of overgrown weeds. We checked it out last week, and we are formulating a project. Let's see. I want to say that I did receive some compliments today about the new sign at Horseshoe Lake. So it's going over very well already, and it just got put up. I want to also thank our fire department, our police department, and our DPW. They've had a very, 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 very busy week or so, especially one day that I know our fire department and police, they were out all day, that one, or week and a half. And so I want to say thank you, and I have actually sent thank yous out to our battalion chief, Valencia, and that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, not much, Mayor. I attended the Lake Pacon Foundation Gala on, I guess it was Thursday night, and it was well attended. Lots of folks there. The foundation is another place where they've been extremely helpful in helping Roxbury around our lake, part of our community that's the lake community. So anyway, nice event, and that's it for me. Thanks, Mayor.
Welcome back from the line, Mr. Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple questions for John. John, I've been out of town for the last 2 weeks. Is there an update on Horseshoe Lake and where that press box and the bleachers are? I believe when Samantha came in all those months ago, we were anticipating a sign package to so that we could at least see what our options were. I thought we were going to see a final rendering of the building, so we knew what the building was going to look like, and so just an update on that.
Still in the works. That hasn't been forgotten about. She struggled a little bit with some of her mason contractors. I think she had people lined up. Has a little bit of uncertainty now on mason contractors to finish some of the concrete work. She's concentrating on that. I know she has some other opportunities, and I'm getting this from Rick. She has some other opportunities to get that work done. I think when she gets that back in order, she'll be back on the building, the sign, bringing that into council for approval on the sign package. The last thing that Rick did tell me was she was thinking of scaling back some of that initial signage she was talking about. So that signage, he didn't want to make it, didn't want to overdo it and have it overshadow the entire facility. So stay tuned. That's still in the works, and Roxbury's done a little bit of the work there. We've done some more work there, and we're waiting for the next step, which is for her to continue moving forward with it.
Okay, yeah, gentlemen, this one.
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to bring to your attention to this post that they put down the other concrete slab, so then it is down, but we still want to go. I got a council, so if they're planning on beginning of September, I'm not sure if that's achieved.
I'm not sure if they're going to make that date. That was their date. They wanted to do that for themselves, so I think that they maybe delayed some. They were pushing that date because they wanted it from the beginning of their season. So I think with this delay, they may not make that date.
But what we're not going to have is a construction site from when football starts, correct? Like, there's going to be a time when we have to stop.
It's going to have to be controlled. Absolutely, it's going to have to be controlled in a way that doesn't cause a problem for the season. So,
Or safety issues.
absolutely. Rick will be back next week. He's on 2 weeks of well-deserved vacation. So when he gets back, we'll be back on this. But he did fill me in on it before he left on where things stand. And right now, we have a little bit of hold up on the concrete.
This gets close to getting proposals.
Or look at some other alternatives. So I think the ball's in her court right now, and hopefully we'll get some positive responses back whenever I meet with Rick again. Perfect.
John, stormwater. I've received a lot of complaints from Salmon Road about water runoff coming off that property. I mean, I don't want to use this word, but fine of some sort. I mean, this is just getting out of control with all the issues that are coming off of this piece of property now. Joe Dunn's involved, correct? Like, where are we with at least just Salmon Road? Right?
Yeah, so anything related to the site and sedimentation that impacts the site or impacts off-site projects, it's all regulated by Morris County Soil Conservation. So that's the organization that, on behalf of DEP, is mandated to deal with it. So when we say Joe Dunn or we get his people, when we say the county, they're not technically a county agency, but they cover the county, Morris County. We bring them to the site, and we have them at the site. We've had them at the site multiple times. Earlier this year, whenever we had issues with Roxbury and some of those initial issues. And then we've had them back again because we've had at least two.
Has he been back to see Salmon Road in the last 2 weeks?
I don't know if he's been there in 2 weeks. I'm going to say maybe before the 2 week period. I was with him on site. I've been there with him, and we looked at it. There's another employee of his, her name's Sheila Hall. Sheila does a lot of the legwork for them. She's at the site a lot and has been there. I can't say if it's been within 2 weeks.
Sure. So, that, the county group used to be very difficult to work with. They were very demanding of the things they wanted. How do we have so many runoffs that we can't get addressed over months and months? They go tell the developer what to do, the developer doesn't. So there's a lack of communication or a lack of understanding of what's happening.
I think the videos, like just clear proof of what's going on.
I think what happens is, and I'm not defending the developer. I want to make that clear. Because our position to Joe Dunn and his organization is, we need this addressed. And in particular, Salmon Road, as Sean mentioned, he sent me multiple videos. There have been multiple properties that were impacted by the most recent storms. And what I think happens is some of these things get fixed or addressed, and they come back in compliance from the standpoint of the county organization, soil conservation. And when a major storm happens, things break down. And then they have problems again, and then they fix them. And it's kind of this recurring sort of...
we got rain today, John. I'm sorry, we got rain today. I don't consider today a major rainstorm. It rained and landed. The guy's yard, it's flooded.
Right. And I think that, and I agree with you on Salmon. In particular, on Thursday of last week, Melanie Machete, our town engineer, and myself, we both visited Salmon. We walked the entire length, and you know the area I'm talking about, where the retaining walls built, right? The multiple retaining walls. We walked the entire length of the property, from the back all the way down. And those areas have been seeded and hayed by the contractor. There's virtually no grass growing. I can't imagine much grass growing there, the way it's been put down. I personally made that information known to Joe Dunn, because I wanted him to be aware of what we saw. That was a Thursday of last week. My concern to him was, when we get a heavy rainstorm again, the same thing's going to happen. Whatever's been done there isn't enough to stabilize the ground. It could be long term, but every time it rains, there's a problem. So I informed him again today of that situation, what our concerns are, and that was later in the day today when I let him know that, because we have concerns. I have concerns about initial seeding. When you seed it, you throw some straw down, and it doesn't germinate in a reasonable period of time, it's not going to germinate. It's not going to happen. So
You need to put that some.
you could sod that lower area. In the lower area, if you're familiar with it, the area below the retaining wall that's adjacent to the homes on Salmon, the properties, is probably more critical to the runoff they're getting than the area above. Not to say the area above doesn't need done. Those are lots that eventually be developed, but they're not even, I don't even know if they're sold. If they're not, if they're seeded and there's some
I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to sit here and try to decide where and what's going to get done here. But there has to be people that know exactly what to do. Those people have to be getting that job done. We can't be having this discussion for 6 months.
My position is, and I'm no expert, because I make that clear, I work in my yard and do what I can and try to get the grass grow, but it's not easy, and when I saw it there, it didn't look like it was germinating and going to grow. So what I want to do with Joe is get him back to the site, have him be aware of what's occurring there, and if things aren't germinating, and just because you put grass seed down and you put some straw down doesn't mean the problem's solved.
And what about restoring the residents' properties? Have we discussed with the contractor that they have to go out and do something?
I think there was one home impacted, and I know that homeowner, meaning their home was impacted, not just their yard. All those homeowners, we could talk to every one of them and ask them to do that. Whether they'll do it or not, I don't know. I don't know, they may say file an insurance claim, I don't know. We've done that on other sites, right? We know that on other construction sites separate from this, where the contractor was willing to go off-site and work on a property.
So we breached the conversation with them?
Yes, that conversation needs to be had, because, and they still have a lot of work to do here. So I think there has to be a two-way street.
Yeah, we need to know, what we do, we have some of those properties, we'll make it a point to collect all those properties and see which one of those property owners are looking for some sort of assistance. For let's call it cleanup.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Carey?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just wanted, the only thing I had this evening was to commend our new superintendent in acting very quickly and getting crisis counselors available to students and staffs in the wake of the drowning incident earlier this month. And that's really
Ms. Reed?
Nothing, thank you.
Just one item everybody should have, that we had an add-on resolution for tonight, 2023-216. This is for filing a grant application for something we do every year, which is highway safety program money for the police department. So we're just a little bit delayed getting this in front of council, so I apologize. It's an add-on, but it's one we've done on an annual basis.
Thank you. Moving on back down to notice requested, we have a block party voted. Introduction of proposed ordinances, 10-23, an ordinance to amend and supplement chapter 2 Administrative Code, section 2-17, officers and employees generally of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Roxbury, County of Morris, State of New Jersey. Somebody move this for introduction.
I'll move.
Second.
A motion is second, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Deputy Mayor Albrecht. Yes. Councilman Carey.
Yes.
Councilman Crowley.
Yes.
Councilman DeFilippo.
Yes.
Councilman Hall.
Yes.
Councilman Patillo.
Yes.
Mayor Riley.
Yes. Takes us to introduction and adoption of resolutions. Please note, 213 was already taken care of, 216 has been added on. Ms. Bell?
Mayor, I'd like to, 2023-204, 2023-205 through 2023-212, also inclusive of 2023-214, and a new add-on resolution of 2023-216.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on any of these items? These will be discussed. Seeing none, roll call please.
Deputy Mayor Albrecht.
Yes.
Councilman Carey.
Yes.
Councilman Crowley.
Yes.
Councilman DeFilippo.
Yes.
Councilman Hall.
Yes.
Councilman Patillo.
Yes.
Mayor Riley.
Yes. Next, communications. Anybody have any communication items? I'll just answer the words. Seeing none, we'll move on to our public portion. If anybody in the public wish to be heard on any issue, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll close the public portion. Do we have an executive session?
Unfortunately, yes. You can blame this one on the manager. The personnel, okay, personnel, salaries and wages, and the individuals have been raised.
And they would like it back.
Correct.
Okay. I think we get that done. 2 minutes.
Resolution of Township Council of Township of Roxbury in the County of Morris, New Jersey, authorizing conference of the Township Council of the Public excluded, whereas it is deemed appropriate the Township Council discuss the matters hereinafter mentioned